You're having a good time at a party your friends are throwing to celebrate a special event in your life, when a 300-foot-tall undersea monster is woken up from its slumber and begins rampaging across the city. The giant monster has thousands of smaller parasite monsters that were attached to its body, who are now rampaging throughout your city as well. And to make matters worse, you have to help save a close friend that you are secretly in love with, who has been injured and is trapped in their apartment. In this fight for survival, do you think you have what it takes to stay alive and rescue your friend? Now I know you probably think pretty highly of yourself, and are screaming at your screen.
Heck yeah, I'd survive. I'm so smart and brave. I'm a natural born survivor. I even used to watch those Bear Grylls survival shows.
I'm going to explain to you why you are wrong and that yes, you would go out like a sissy and be killed by the Cloverfield monsters faster than you can count to 3. By breaking down the story, the mistakes made, and why you would not survive the monster attack in the 2008 movie, Cloverfield. Before we start the video, I just need like 15 seconds to quickly advertise to you. Subscribe to Showsplanation so you don't miss future breakdowns of your favorite shows. We have a Patreon in the description that you can donate to support this YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit mebomber.com for cool and funny clothing. The website, mebomber.com, is in the description. Alright, back to the video. An arguing couple, Jason and Lily, are recording themselves running errands around Manhattan, New York, to prepare for a surprise farewell party they are throwing for Jason's brother named Robert, who has recently accepted a new job in Japan. The farewell party commences and people are having a good time. Robert arrives at the surprise party and thanks everybody. Beth shows up at the party with a new guy. Robert and Beth had a romantic relationship of some sort in the past. Robert is jealous of the new guy Beth is dating named Travis. Robert and Beth have an argument. Beth leaves the party with Travis. There's a power outage across the entire city and an earthquake, which is actually the earth shaking because of a giant monster in the city, but the characters do not know that yet. This is the first reason you would not survive the Cloverfield monster attack. A power outage during a monster attack means hospitals cannot properly take care of the injured and dying. American hospitals are required by law to have backup generators and stored fuel on site to keep generators running for a total of 96 hours, in case a power outage lasts days. Each hospital's backup energy requirement is only calculated using normal hospital operations and energy use. This story takes place in Manhattan, which is a densely populated borough of New York City with a population of over 1.6 million people. There will be tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of extra people that are now in need of medical attention due to a monster attack, on top of the hospital's normal patient activity. There are only 24 hospitals in Manhattan, and many of those hospitals and their respective personnel specialize in eye, ear, nose, and throat, or the research and treatment of certain diseases, like cancer. Thus, it is impossible for the healthcare system in Manhattan to be able to handle the exponential surge in demand that a monster attack would create. So if you compound the problem with a city-wide power outage, plus overwhelmed hospitals struggling to meet the exponentially increased energy needs, plus the unavoidable power issues like electricity short circuits due to all the new equipment that will need to be plugged into the limited amount of outlets to try and meet this increased healthcare demand, the unavoidable outcome is that a ridiculous amount of injured and dying people will be left to die. Also, Manhattan is an island that is connected to the rest of the world through only 21 bridges and 15 tunnels. During a monster attack, the traffic, chaos, and destruction that are going to affect the buildings, roads, power supplies, bridges, and tunnels will make it impossible for most of the injured and dying within the area to be transported to outside hospitals. Light is restored to the party because the backup generator in their building has turned on. People in the party are scared and confused about what just happened. They turn on the news, which reports that there was a possible earthquake and an oil tanker which capsized in the New York harbor near the Statue of Liberty. So, the news reporters are not aware of the giant monster attacking the city yet, or they are lying to the populace to prevent widespread panic for as long as possible. This is the second reason you would not survive the Cloverfield attack. You will likely not know that you need to escape Manhattan until it's already too late, with you either coming across the monsters yourself or being stuck in the widespread panic when everybody learns about the monsters at the same time. There are only 21 bridges and 15 tunnels for over 1.6 million people to use to escape the island of Manhattan. And that's the best case scenario, assuming that the monsters don't destroy any of the few avenues of escaping the island, and assuming that pieces of damaged buildings and broken down vehicles don't block the way. Once everybody knows what the problem is and are trying to escape at the same time, then you will be trapped in Manhattan. The partygoers head to the roof of the building. They see a giant explosion far off in the distance. The partygoers run back inside the building when flaming projectiles from that explosion rain on the city and almost hit their building's roof. That giant explosion and the flaming projectiles raining on the city likely caused a lot of injuries and deaths. You surviving this would be pure luck, because there is nothing you could have done to protect yourself, since the incident happened too quickly and randomly for anyone to be able to react. The partygoers and what looks like everyone else in the city leave their buildings and run into the streets. Manhattan is densely populated, and about 75% of residents don't own cars. That means a lot of people who depend on public transportation are now walking in the streets, blocking the minority of people who do own cars from driving. If you are among the majority of the over 1.6 million people in Manhattan that do not own a car, then you are at a greater risk of death and injury when walking on the streets where explosions, projectiles, and monsters can more easily reach you. And if you are among the small minority that do own a car, then the majority of people who don't are clogging the streets, thus making it difficult or impossible for you to drive, so you are probably going to end up walking the streets and more vulnerable, just like everybody else. People are panicking, stampeding in the streets, and asking each other what is going on. The giant monster sends the head of the Statue of Liberty flying through the streets, right next to the main characters. It took just a couple seconds for that giant heavy copper statue head to fly through the sky and land in the middle of the road. This demonstrates how not being perfectly aware of your surroundings for just a second, or freezing up in fear just once, or not reacting fast enough, or not having a body capable of moving quick enough, can cost you your life at any moment. Many of the people on the streets pull out their cell phones to take pictures, record video, and post about the statue head on social media. A nearby skyscraper is demolished by the monster. If you have the misfortune of being in or around any buildings that the monster destroys, you are dead because you don't have the superhuman speed necessary to outrun a falling building. The people on the streets flee the shockwave and clouds of rubble and debris from the destroyed skyscraper. The main characters hide inside a nearby convenience store to escape the flying debris. The giant monster is somewhere nearby and is sending tremors from its roar and footsteps. Everybody is coughing and can barely see with all the dust and pulverized building materials floating in the air. This is another reason that you would not survive the Cloverfield monster attack. Breathing the contaminated air throughout the city too long exposes your lungs to asbestos and other carcinogens, such as lead, mercury, benzene, and dioxins. Your risk for various lung diseases and developing cancer will shoot through the roof. Just ask the first responders and survivors of the September 11 attacks on the World Trade Center. The group decides to leave Manhattan by walking to the nearest bridge, which is miles away. The group complains that none of their cell phones have signal. That is another reason why you would not survive the Cloverfield monster attack. The power outage caused by monsters mean that Wi-Fi routers everywhere don't have power, with the exception of the few remaining private residences and commercial buildings that have a backup generator. If you manage to find a Wi-Fi router that still has power, you won't be able to access it anyway without the login credentials. And now there's a cellular network outage because it's been overloaded by everyone trying to make a call at the same time, or because monsters have destroyed cell towers. This means you are now completely cut off from the life-saving information and announcements that could be on the internet. You can no longer call 911 if you suffer some kind of medical or other emergency, and your general communication is now limited to only the people that are physically in front of you. Police are stationed on the road to help direct the mob of walking people. The group finally reaches the bridge. Military personnel in a helicopter is giving orders through a loudspeaker for the civilians to keep moving, and that they will be given further instructions somewhere further up after they cross the bridge. Once on the bridge, Robert gets his cellular connection back, and he received a voicemail from Beth saying she is trapped in her apartment and is unable to move. Jason is killed when a large unidentified object randomly falls on the bridge, causing it to collapse. Many others died on the bridge besides Jason, and the surviving main characters were forced to escape the bridge back in the direction of Manhattan. Lily is having a mental breakdown due to the sudden death of her boyfriend Jason. Robert is in shock because his brother Jason just died. Random people start breaking into buildings and looting. When the situation gets bad enough, law and order crumbles. This increases your chances of becoming the victim of a crime, like murder, assault, robbery, and forced intercourse. The group enters a electronics store that is being looted and see a news report of a giant monster rampaging through lower Manhattan. The giant monster is shown to be accompanied by countless smaller parasitic monsters which fall off its body and immediately attack soldiers. Robert's cell phone died, so he stole a phone in the electronics store to re-listen to the voicemail that Beth left him, asking for help. Robert decides to try and save Beth, who is injured and trapped in her apartment, which is in the same direction that the monsters are concentrated. The group tries to convince Robert to stop because it's too dangerous, but Robert will not listen to reason, so the group decides to go along with Robert because they feel they can't just abandon him. This is another reason you would not survive the Cloverfield monster attack. Most people have children, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, and friends that they care for and want to protect. Unfortunately, you do not have the luxury of trying to protect anyone other than yourself. These monsters are so much faster, bigger, stronger, and more deadly than humans that on the news report we saw earlier, a large group of trained soldiers with all the best military equipment and weapons available were easily overwhelmed by the monsters. If your conscience and mentality does not allow you to abandon your own helpless young child, or your sick mother, or your slow-moving spouse at the drop of a hat if and when they become a liability, then your chances of surviving the Cloverfield monster attack are significantly lower. Robert and the group head to Beth's apartment to save her. The group is almost killed by friendly fire from a rocket flying over their heads, and soldiers suddenly shooting guns from behind them when the giant monster appeared only a few blocks away. Soldiers bombard the extremely durable monster with tank fire, rockets, and automatic weapons. The group continues in the direction of the monster, towards Beth's apartment, despite getting caught in the middle of a battle. The group literally gets within a couple feet of the giant monster before they take a left turn down some stairs into a subway station. The group decides to wait in the subway station for the nearby fighting to stop before they continue their mission to save Beth. The impatient Robert, while looking at a map in the subway station, proposes that they get to Beth's apartment by walking through the subway tunnels for a couple blocks. The group accepts Robert's plan, and they walk through the dark subway tunnel together. The group stumbles upon hundreds of rats that are all running away from something in the same direction. This is another reason you would die in the Cloverfield monster attack. A direct confrontation with the monsters is an almost guaranteed death, so you have to be aware of your environment to pick up on clues that monsters may be nearby. Environmental clues can be small and easy to miss, especially when you are in a stressful, life-threatening situation, or you are emotionally charged. The characters just missed or chose to disregard a gigantic clue, which were the hundreds of tunnel rats that are used to loud, tunnel-shaking humans and trains coming through on a regular basis, so they should not scare easily. But for some reason these rats have decided to all flee in the same direction, away from what must be a new danger that they are likely unfamiliar with. An environmentally aware person would think that the rats' strange behavior has something to do with the monsters terrorizing the city and avoid getting anywhere near where the rats are running from. The group stops walking when they hear a weird noise. The group turns on the night vision on their camera and they see a group of small monsters which are stalking them while crawling on the walls of the tunnel. The group runs for their lives. A girl in the group named Marlena gets tackled from behind by one of the small monsters. The pack of monsters bite and claw at everyone. The group fights back by kicking, punching, and hitting the monsters with objects they found on the ground. The group gets lucky and sees an exit door a few feet away, which they run inside to shut the monsters out. They don't know this yet, but a bite from the small parasitic monsters is poisonous and will cause you to bleed out of your eyes until your body eventually explodes like a piñata. The group makes their way to an employee break room in the subway tunnel and scavenge the food in the refrigerators. Marlena has a very deep bite on her back from the monsters, so she is going to die very soon. They exit the subway station through a door that connects to some sort of retail store or mall. Marlena says she feels sick and dizzy. Soldiers show up out of nowhere to confront the group, It turns out this space is being used as a command center and field hospital by the military. Robert begs a soldier for help saving Beth, but the soldier says it's too dangerous. They enter the field hospital area and see dead and injured people everywhere, receiving medical attention. The commanding officer orders everyone to get ready. In 15 minutes they are leaving Manhattan, and the next phase of their operation is going to begin. Robert pesters the commanding officer to help save Beth, and the officer tells him no, he is not jeopardizing his operation just to save one person. Robert says he's going to save her by himself then. Marlena is bleeding out of her eyes, and looking even sicker. Military personnel in hazmat suits notice Marlena's bleeding eyes, and then rush her to a quarantine area. So, it looks like the military is already aware that bites from the small monsters are fatal. But it will take years for scientists to finish researching and develop a substance to counteract the alien poison from the monster's bite. So, if you got bit in the Cloverfield monster attack, you would die before drugs could be developed to save you, especially since death occurs in a matter of minutes. The group enters the quarantine area while chasing after Marlena, and they see the silhouette of her body exploding inside a tent. A soldier tells Robert that if he still wants to go save Beth, nobody is going to stop him. However, in 15 minutes the military is going to shower the city in missiles to try and kill the giant monster. And there will be one last evacuation helicopter in the area, coincidentally near Beth's apartment, that will depart just before the military begins blowing up the entire city. The group is walking the dangerous streets towards Beth's apartment. They see the apartment Beth lives in from a distance, and it has been knocked over and is leaning on another building. They enter the structurally unstable apartment, which could fully collapse at any moment. The elevators don't work. They take the stairs up to Beth's floor. They kick down the front door of Beth's apartment. They find Beth unconscious on the ground and impaled by exposed rebar. Beth wakes up and is surprised that Robert and friends came to save her. The group pulls Beth up from the ground and exposed rebar impaling her body. I was very annoyed at this moment because Beth's arms and legs were functioning properly. She was even mentally present enough to call Robert for help and leave voicemails. So really, there was nothing stopping Beth from pulling herself up from the rebar sticking through her shoulder, except her own fear of pain. They pull Beth up on her feet, wrap clothing around her puncture wound to help stop the bleeding, and see the giant monster nearby outside the window. They escape the apartment building together. They run through the streets to the final evacuation helicopter and make it just in time. They see their friend, Lily, waiting there for them, and she is placed inside a separate helicopter with some Marines. Robert, Beth, and the friend behind the camera breathe a sigh of relief, thinking they are only moments away from flying away in a helicopter and putting all this behind them. The monster shows up to the evacuation site. The group of friends is rushed into a remaining helicopter. They are flying in the helicopter and watching the giant monster be bombed by fighter jets. The monster lunges at their helicopter, which causes them to crash in Central Park. Everybody dies but the three friends, who escape the crash with only minor injuries. The giant monster notices the group and eats the friend behind the camera. Robert and Beth grab the dropped camera and run away together. They take shelter under a bridge as missiles explode all around them. With their last minutes of life, the two record their goodbyes on the camera. The bridge they are hiding under is blown up. Robert and Beth die while professing their love for each other. And that's the end of the movie. But what do you think? What would you do differently if you were one of the characters in this movie? Let me know with a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you liked the video. Until next time, have a great day.